All right, peeps, we back here again. Today we're going to talk about preparing our youth to young adults to avoid the unemployment pitfalls. You know, when we're thinking about transitioning our youth, transitioning seasons and periods of time, we typically think in terms of, high school, elementary to middle, middle to high, high to college, college to the real world, and even young adult to adulthood, and all of these little small intimacies and intricacies in between. What we often don't focus on are those die-hard topics that really have an impact along the way. Right now, this is a season, well, every season, every year, but especially during the transition between the months of May, June, and August, September, a lot of parents, a lot of youth, a lot of family are looking into scholarship opportunities to help offset the financial barriers or burdens that college is now presenting to them. And while scholarships are important, even in terms of grants, financial aid, loans, which are a lot of areas that I'm seeing parents panicking in, youth are panicking in, whether it's for an HBCU or PWI. All of those things are absolutely important. But what happens once a scholarship has been applied for and awarded? What happens when a loan has been applied for, denied, or awarded? What happens when that grant applied for has been denied, won, and applied? So, in other words, scholarships, loans, grants are short term fixes. They're not long term solutions. And that's just a part of it. How have the youth, the parents, the young adults, or the families really prepared themselves to be scholarship worthy, to be grant worthy, to be loan worthy? And then once it's awarded, if selected, how do you pay off a loan? How do you maximize the grant? How do you increase the quality of who the candidate is to receive more scholarships? And then what happens once the youth to young adult gets out into the real world? Because unfortunately, there is no scholarship in terms of employment. There is no grant given to you in terms of employment. That's long term. Short term, yes, if it's in terms of a position while in school, but not when you get out into the real world. And yeah, you can loan your way up until you blue in the face. But at some point or another, the individual must pay those loans back. And when we're thinking about youth to young adult, and I'm using the term youth to young adult, but it could be an adult transitioning into an even mature adult, a parent, a new parent transitioning into parenthood. Take it the way you want. But today, my focus is youth to young adult. As these youth to young adults are transitioning into the real world, there's something that's going to hinder what once was. And that is in terms of making sure that they avoid the unemployment pitfalls. My name is Dr. Dorsey. I am the founder of DTD Sports Leadership Academy. I am the author of over 100 publications, currently in print, keynote author, keynote speaker, business consultant, education consultant, and all of those other great things. But what I'm going to talk about here today is preparing our youth to young adults to avoid the unemployment pitfalls. And to get started, I wanted to be able to do some research or present some research that is going to allow you to have a better understanding of what's happening. And I want to start off with, this was a survey, a 2-year survey done according to Statista.com. And from May 2021, the teen unemployment rate was 9.6%. In a 2-year time span to May 2023, the teen unemployment rate across the United States went from a 9.6 to a 10.3%. Now, according to Statista, they define teen as individuals ages 16 to 19. So that these are roughly juniors, seniors in high school, and maybe up to college graduates, depending on how early they started college. Or 19-year-olds might be sophomores going into their junior year. But that's a large percentage for an unemployment in a 2-year time period. So again, teens ages 16 to 19, roughly juniors or seniors in high school, to sophomores going into their junior year in college, the unemployment rate from May 2021 was 9.6% to most recently May 2023 at 10.3%. So what happened in that 2-year time span? We can only guess that the youth may not have understood the real world transition, may not have been as prepared for employment as much as they thought that they were. They may not have. It's a lot of variables as to why. And again, this is a nationwide, not just a specific geographic area. The next study I want to bring in, which is equally relatable to this topic, in preparing youth to young adults to avoid the unemployment pitfalls, this 2-year study focused on youth to young adults ages 16 to 24, as opposed to 16 to 19. In this 2-year study, also by Statista, in May of 2021, the youth unemployment rate was at 9.9%. And actually, by May 2023, April 2023, it dipped to 6.5 and it started increasing back up to 7.4%. Now, these are huge numbers, whether you're looking at the teen unemployment rate or even the youth unemployment rate. But the question is not so much as in the dip or the increase, is as in the lack of preparation and the variables that lead youth and young adults to even have to become unemployed. The youth today are living in a digital age. Everything about who they are is connected to a device, whether it's an iPhone, an Android, Android users, but iPhone, Androids, whether it's a tablet, a computer, an app. But in the real world, you can't be successful in applying for a job, landing a job, doing an interview, knowing how to prepare for it, knowing how to land it, and knowing how to keep it through an app or even technology. Technology is absolutely something that can help in the preparation and even in the intervention of employment hunting, but not in the actual practical application and being successful. And so I want to be able to offer just a few tips for those parents out there that are battling with or pulling their hair out with teens that are within that 16 to 19 age group, or parents with young adults ages 16 heading into 24. And also for parents who youth have not actually turned 16 yet. And in terms of preparation, youth in today's society have a lot of variables at their disposal by going to schools, whether it is a magnet school, whether it is an AVID program, whether it is organizations that they are a part of. They are exploring traits, interests. They are being introduced to new things that unfortunately in our earlier days and even our latter days as adults today, we were not as heavily introduced to. And so tip number one is to explore early. And we're not talking, or at least I'm not talking from a preparation standpoint, 10th grade. That is too late. 12th grade, that is too late. We're talking, or I'm suggesting, as early as elementary. Yep. Kids in elementary school know what they like, know what they don't like. And even in middle school, when you can identify what their interests are early, then you're learning a little more about them. And sometimes you don't even have to ask them a question. You can watch their behaviors. You can watch their mannerisms, listen actively to what they're saying, see their progress through report cards, through assessments. So when you explore early and take that intentional interest as an adult in their lives, whether you're a parent, a guardian, a coach, a youth center program director, implementing a program, it doesn't matter. It is helping to individualize them and take them from looking at them from a group perspective. So looking at their individual traits, characteristics, what make them who they are, what they're saying, what their products are, what they're interested in, not interested in. And yes, if you're exploring as early as elementary, they're still developing, right? When you understand the developmental stage of youth from pre-kindergarten to 12th grade, they're still exploring new interests. So they're not as definitive to say no to sports, but they will tell you right away if they feel like it makes them feel uncomfortable. Uncomfortable doesn't mean a no. It just means that it needs a little more TLC, a little more tender loving care, or working at it to see if the interest is there. And as students are getting older, especially right around age 14, 15, they become not interested in everything real world or anything that's going to make them sweat. That is the time when parents or any adult overseeing a youth in some sort of way need to really get them involved. Get them involved because their next step is going into the category of pushing into adulthood. And we just went over the 2-year studies that talked about the unemployment rate starting at 16. So again, explore early, individualize who they are, even if you are an adult or parent with multiple children like I am, or if you oversee a program through multiple ages like my company does and I do. You have to individualize their assessments and evaluations, their interests, their likes, their dislikes, and explore early as to what matters to them. And then once you're able to explore early, nurture those interests. Nurturing meaning help them to develop that interest and really understand why that interest piques them, excites them, motivates them, inspires them more than anything else. And when you're right around that middle school age, you're going to have, or actually the latter part of elementary, I should say, right around that 4th, 5th grade, your youth are going to start isolating their many interests down to maybe 1 to 5 greater interests. And even out of that 1 to 5, they're going to have 1 to 2 that really pique their interest the most. And as they go into middle school, it's going to be important to now nurture their interest as it now relates to the classes that they're in. Yes, it's work, but it's worth it if we want to help our youth to young adults avoid the unemployment pitfalls that start at age 16. So nurture those interests related back to who they are, what they want to do, why they want to do it, and especially their academic endeavors. And then when you're able to explore early, nurture their interests, your next step is to close the gap. The biggest gap from the school system to the real world is practical application, right? In other words, how do you take what you're learning in a classroom and apply it to the real world? And then how do you take what's being taught in the real world and piggyback on it in the classroom. And guess what? It's not just about K-12 in the real world, it's also college, right? So closing the gap as the adults in their life will begin to open up their eyes to new lenses. Now looking at life through a new set of lenses and looking at opportunities that's going to benefit them short term and long term. And when you're able to explore early, nurture their interests, close the gap, then the youth to young adults will begin to capitalize on opportunities previously unknown and tapped into. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that already a blueprint for maximizing success? Absolutely it is. Because here's the thing that we know about life. Every day that you get up and you're able to breathe and to walk and to talk and do those other things, it's another day for a new opportunity. And life is all about untapped possibilities. That's why it says all things are possible as long as you believe. But our youth to young adults can't believe what they don't know. Our youth to young adults can't believe what they haven't been introduced to. And our youth and young adults cannot believe what has not been introduced and explored. So capitalize on those opportunities that not only where they express an interest, but helping them think beyond what they see. As adults, as parents, we have so many arsenals, so many tools in our arsenals. We belong to this organization and that organization and this organization and another organization. And you got friends from 20 years ago who you have not even spoken with, or somebody you may come across that is absolutely singing the right song. And the right song may not be for you, but it would be, can be, and should be for the youth or your child that you are responsible for, right? And then when you're able to explore early, nurture their interests, close the gap, capitalize on opportunities, here comes the bonus. Here comes the prize at the end of the tunnel, because we know it's not all about the destination, it's all about the growth. And so what will happen in between tip number 1 to tip number 4 is number 5, watching the growth. Have you ever been in a situation where you took a picture at the beginning of your child's year, and then you take a picture in the same outfit with a different sign at the end of the year, and you're looking at it side by side, and you're going, man, I didn't even realize the height. Like, my child is much taller, or they're more buff, or their facial features are growing more, or related to your pocketbook, their feet grew 2 to 3 sizes, right? The point is, you're looking at the before and you're looking at the after. And then that's where you see the greatest gift, how much they've grown. Their conversation changes, their intellect has matured, their vocabulary, their view on the world, their understanding of how things are impacting them, and their introduction to things that make them comfortable and uncomfortable. And when you're able to see that growth as a parent, it's making you feel a little more comfortable with your child going out into the real world. And then there's the flip side. It's where the parent may not have taken a before picture or an after picture or an in-between picture, may not have explored early, may not have nurtured interests, don't even know what the interests are, may have no idea what closing the gap is. Maybe they may open the refrigerator and close it. That's closing the gap. Have no ideas on how to capitalize on opportunities, because as an adult, they're stuck. And if they feel like they're stuck, how can they now help their kids? And there is a lack of growth because they don't feel that they have grown. And when that's the case, then the youth unemployment rates that we spoke of through Statista, whether it's teens ages 16 to 19 or youth to young adults ages 14 to 24, it now becomes a reality. And unfortunately, in today's reality, we have to be able to prepare our youth to young adults better than what we're preparing ourselves today. Whether you grew up in the hood, you grew up in poverty, you grew up in a one family, no family, extended family, it doesn't matter. It's what we have learned and what we are destined to do to help the next generation. And as parents of today, as guardians of today, as coaches of today, as mentors of today, as program directors running youth-centered or youth-led organizations, it is our responsibility to ensure that our youth to young adults avoid the unemployment pitfalls. Sounds simple because it is that simple, right? And it's that simple because the steps, at least the tips today, have provided an overview of, in a little more detail, as to what to do and how to do it. And why do I say it's just that simple? Because as a parent of 4, 25, 18, 17, and 15, who have businesses, who are leading in the community, who are broken barriers, who have not only been introduced and have increased their awareness in closing the gap and nurturing interest and exploring early and capitalizing on opportunities, and me being able to watch their growth. In the process, I've grown. I've grown and been challenged as an educator, as a leader, civic engagement, through advocacy, because as I introduced things to my youth, they started teaching me and what they needed more. And so, unfortunately, it would never be okay for me to say, well, I can't, I won't, I don't, or this is a barrier. My responsibility as a parent, my responsibility as a leader, my responsibility as a coordinator and a founder of DTD Sports Leadership Academy in so many ways on the for-profit, nonprofit, business, and education front was to find a way to maneuver to get them to what they need. Because now they were forcing me outside of my comfort zone. And as a result, I grew. And so it's this each one teach one. So as a parent of today with youth, it's your responsibility to be uncomfortable and to have those uncomfortable scenarios, uncomfortable conversations, uncomfortable discomforts. And when you grow and you, as a parent, guardian, coach, mentor, pour back in, then we help to prepare our youth to young adults to avoid the unemployment pitfalls. So let me do a real quick review again. Statistics today are showing in the last 2 years that the teen unemployment rate, ages 16 and 19, have gone from a 9.6% in May of 2021 to 10.3% in May of 2023. That's high. Another study through Statista with youth for unemployment rates ages 16 to 24 went from 9.9% in May of 2021 with a dip to 6.5% in April of 2023. Now it's back on a rise in May of 2023 at 7.4%. That says a lot. And in order to prevent our youth from falling into those unemployment pitfalls at the age of 16 or intervening if they are currently in the unemployment pitfall, is that we have to explore early, nurture those interests, close the gap, capitalize on opportunities, and sit back and watch the growth. And when we're able to do that, then we're beginning to understand what it means to not just prepare them to avoid the unemployment pitfalls, but to ensure that we are helping them to transition into real world scenarios that's going to help them short term and long term and help their socioeconomic position, their professional position, their personal position, their social position, as well as their place in humanity. Well, that's my tips for today. In closing, if you're looking for a program to assist in preparing your youth to young adults to avoid the unemployment pitfalls, I run a DTD Sports Leadership Academy. If you're looking for a consultant standpoint, where so you're trying to figure out how to develop these interests or have these conversations or close the gap and what or may not be, you can reach out or reach me at 443-431-8943. You can learn more about my DTD Sports Leadership Academy at dtdsportsleadershipacademy.com. You can also explore who I am if you're looking for a speaker at www.drtakimadorsey.com. Listen, and until then, just know unemployment pitfalls are going to impact adults, but we don't want them to impact our youth to young adults as they're transitioning into the real world, because that helps no one, including themselves. Until next time, have a great day.